Hey you large spectrum of beautiful people. Sorry for the delay in the most recent video update here. I have been reasonably unwell for the last week, but I am back and ready to go, and today I want to talk and rant about climate change. So what actually piqued my interest about the climate change debate at the moment is there was a recent video that's been released, which I'll put that link in the description as well, that was about the New Zealand talking about their climate change and what they're looking at. And the interesting part about that is that it was actually a millennial who was talking in Parliament about how climate change is a real issue and it's something we need to look at right now. And the funny part about that is that someone else in the background, which we can't quite hear what they say, actually started trying to interrupt her. And her retort to that, which I think is just fantastic, was just her coming back to say, "Okay, boomer," and then continuing on with her speech about how we need to look at climate change and try and find a resolve. Now, while I want to focus on climate change for this video, I just want to touch on the fact that "okay boomer" has now apparently become this insult towards the older generation and the baby boomer generation here. And there's been a lot of outcry and a lot of articles that have been written that, in fact, there's one in particular that states that "okay boomer" is the new word to use as a slur that's at the same veracity as what the N-word has been for the past, millennia. Now, just think about that for a second. The baby boomer generation and anyone that is of that the mindset of a boomer, which it's now become more so of a mindset than just being part of a generation, but they have now perceived that saying "okay boomer" or calling someone a boomer is of the same level as what the N-word has been used for, to discriminate and to look down upon on the black community. And you've got to be some sort of egotistic generation to actually think that calling someone a boomer is on the same level as discriminating against an entire race. And this is just ridiculous to me. And I'll link all the links in the description that relate to those kind of articles that talk about like using the "okay boomer" term, as well as that video that I mentioned previously. Anyway, getting back to the topic at hand with climate change, New Zealand has just recently passed a zero carbon bill, which is basically just to design itself so that we stop using so much emissions and lower the pollution rate in general to try and help out with this climate change that is, well, a fact. It is in fact a fact that we are experiencing hotter years, year after year, and the climate is in fact rising, and we are definitely contributing to that and making things a whole lot worse. If you have any other opinions, then please comment down below, and I would love to have a debate and a discussion about that to understand your viewpoint on that and gather some more information to see if we can all convince everyone that this is actually something we need to start looking at right now. From the statistics that I can see that I've looked through and actually read on myself, it appears that we have 12% of New Zealanders out of a large pool of surveyed, shows that we have 12% of New Zealanders are climate deniers. And again, that does baffle me because there is so much evidence out there that shows and makes a claim towards that there is in fact climate change. In fact, a good notion we have here is showing that over in the Fox Glacier, which is in New Zealand, you can actually see, and if you go there you can actually see where they have the posters and signs put up to show at what points in year and time they actually showed up to where it was. So you can actually walk through that and see, okay, so in 2007 it was at this point here, and then we go to 2019, it's travelled back so many kilometres, which is huge, and it doesn't make any sense to look at that and say, oh well, this isn't an issue, and oh no, the climate changes anyway is a big thing that a lot of climate deniers say, is that it's just changing by itself and that's what it does. And while that's technically correct, the climate does change by itself, we're definitely not actually helping and contributing with how we're doing stuff at the moment. Now, in fairness, New Zealand is doing a pretty good job with this. They've just released their zero carbon bill, so we're working on that. The policies that we have with Jacinda Ardern, which is the Prime Minister over in New Zealand, she is very much towards trying to resolve climate change, and she's trying to fix climate change and do what we can to actually support and help in an effort to actually try and make this world last a little bit longer than what it looks like it's going to at the moment. However, the friendly neighbour Australia is not so much on board with that. In fact, they are, in most cases, they're more so on the heavy side of believing that climate change isn't really an issue, and their government and parliament don't believe that either. In fact, all they really do is they tend to push the agenda that no, we can last with pumping out more mining and more pollution, and this will be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Nah, mate. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And this is driven home a little bit harder by the fact that there was an interview done not too long ago, last month I believe is when it was done, which involved three different panels from the Parliament to talk about climate change, and Labour over in Australia is currently looking at trying to push to see if they can get climate change at all move forward whatsoever, and saying that it is looking like it might be an emergency. And on one side we have someone who was named Nicholas, who is on the side that yes, climate change is a real thing, yes, it's an emergency, yes, we need to do stuff now and actually work towards trying to resolve this issue. This is something that needs to be looked at and worked on further until we can actually find some sort of resolution. But on the other hand, there was a woman on the panel, which was, I believe her name was Primus. I'm not 100% sure, it's a little hard to hear in the actual interview itself, but her viewpoint is that it is in fact not an emergency, and that the only emergency is in fact in their heads. She also then mentions previously that Australia is the land of its rolling hills, and it's always hot there, and there's always droughts going on, and there isn't anything wrong with it, and it's not an emergency at all. Well, I'm sorry, but it is an emergency. And a quick snippet of this, if you do a real quick Google search of just Australian drought facts, you can actually see that in 2018, this is just last year, they had the worst drought in history in Australia. And then if you take another quick look and you check this year, it actually shows that this year they've had the worst drought in Australia's history. Now, I don't know if you can make a quick check and see what those facts are there, but if we're just looking at a 1 year basis and it keeps getting worse and worse, probably means there is an issue. Just the fact that there are people like this over in Australia and also all over the world that are so harsh in their viewpoints of that climate change and the risks of climate change aren't real, and they just will not look at any evidence, and if there is any evidence brought to them, they deny it and saying that no, that's just falsified, that's not something that we can actually take into a actual account. Show me actual proof that I can see right now that it's not changing just because the climate changes. This is what scares me the most. These kinds of people are in places of power and government. This is including everyone all over the world. There are a few countries, such as like New Zealand included, where that one person that's in position of power there, such as Jacinda Ardern, is fighting for that right to try and help with the climate change and try and reduce the emissions that are actually created. But New Zealand's a small country. It's not a big country. New Zealand has the ability to potentially change some minds and try and put their best foot forward to say, hey, look at what we're doing. Let's see if we can change anyone else to get them on our side, to try and actually make this world last just a little bit longer. But I can't be sure if that's actually going to work. None of us can. We're not sure if we'll be able to actually go through and actually change anyone's mind with such a small population as what New Zealand has. And I can only hope that we can do some kind of good for this, and that we can actually try and work on and fix. Well, not fix, because there's no fixing the climate change now. There's a lot of damage that's been done. And we can just do our best to try and make this world as livable as possible for as long as possible. And look, if you're not as clued up as what you think you could be with climate change, then I urge you to take a look. Just take a look at some of the links that I've got in the description, Google it, just read some articles, find some statistics, learn about it yourself so you can understand what has happened and what we can try to do to fix this. And spread it around, share this video to people as well, just to let them know that this is an issue that we need to actually look at and try and resolve. Because the way that we're going at the moment, and the amount of pollution that we've been creating, and the amount of damage we've already done to the ozone layer, and how much damage we've done to this planet in general, is just astronomical. And it's something that we definitely need to work on. And it just baffles me at how many people can sit there and say that, oh no, the climate just changes by itself. It's not something that like we can influence. We're just small little specks on the Earth. And look, I think George Carlin put it best in half of the statement that he made a long time ago now. May he rest in peace. Humans and the population on this Earth they're just parasites. It's just an infection that the Earth is trying to get rid of. The only difference between what his quote is and the way that I would alter it is that we're a parasite that is sentient, and we're almost trying to destroy ourselves by destroying the host. You know what, if people in power do want to just keep continuing to deny that climate change is a thing and ignore the evidence that we have, then there's only one thing I've got to say to you. Okay, Boomer. Welcome to the Enslay. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to support my channel, check it out in the description. I do have a Patreon, as well as a Facebook and Twitter page as well. You will have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video.